Nobody expects heartbreak to show up in the middle of an ordinary Wednesday night at a small town diner. David Lawson, a 37-year-old single father, sat alone in a corner booth with his 8-year-old son, Tyler. He wasn't a wealthy man. He wasn't a perfect man. He was just surviving. Once, David had dreams, working as a carpenter with his own shop, building custom furniture, leaving a legacy of craftsmanship for his boy. But after his wife's sudden passing from a car accident 3 years earlier, survival became his only goal. Nights were long, mornings were heavy, and days were spent hustling small carpentry jobs that barely covered rent. Tyler became his reason to keep breathing. That night, David had splurged. Instead of cooking spaghetti on a stove that barely worked, he'd promised Tyler a meal at the diner. The one with checkered floors, neon signs, and a jukebox still coughing out Elvis songs. "Dad, can we get fries too?" Tyler asked, his voice carrying the hopeful lilt of childhood. David chuckled. "Just this once, fries and burgers. But don't tell Mrs. Jenkins," he teased, referencing their elderly landlord who always scolded them for eating junk food. They laughed together, and for a moment, David forgot the overdue electric bill folded in his pocket. Their food came: 2 burgers, a pile of golden fries, and chocolate milkshakes. Tyler dug in with pure joy, and David, though wary, savored every bite. For once, the world outside their booth didn't matter, until it did. Just as David pushed his plate aside, stomach satisfied but mind drifting toward unpaid bills, he heard a timid voice. "Mum, sir, may we have your leftovers?" David looked down. 2 little girls stood by the table, no older than 10, identical twins. Their clothes were mismatched, their shoes too worn for children that young. Their eyes, wide, tired, and hungry, clung to his half-eaten burger and basket of fries. David's first instinct was confusion. Then his heart cracked wide open. Before he could answer, a voice called from across the diner. A woman, their mother. She stood by the door, her posture stiff, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Girls! Come back here right now," she scolded. But it was too late. David had already seen it in her eyes when their gazes locked: exhaustion, shame, and something deeper: desperation. The twins backed away quickly, whispering apologies, but David's hand shot out. "Wait." The diner buzzed with low chatter, but suddenly David felt like every eye was on him. He looked from the half-eaten food to the twins, then to their mother, who now approached the table, her jaw tight. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. "They shouldn't have bothered you." But David shook his head. "No bother at all. Please sit down. Join us." Her lips parted, stunned. She hesitated, as though the invitation itself was a kind of wound. We can't." "You can," David said firmly. "Please." The twins' faces lit up, though their mother still looked torn between pride and need. Finally, with a deep, shuddering breath, she nodded. They slid into the booth across from David and Tyler. The waitress raised an eyebrow but said nothing, bringing extra plates instead. David pushed his leftovers toward the girls, who began eating as though the world might take the food away at any second. Tyler watched them curiously, then glanced up at his father. David only smiled gently, though inside a storm of questions raged. "Thank you," the woman whispered eventually. Her voice was soft, careful, like someone who hadn't been thanked in a long time. "I'm David," he offered, "and this is my son, Tyler." She hesitated, then said, "I'm Rachel. These are my girls, Emily and Grace." The names suited them, fragile yet full of light. For a few minutes, the only sounds were forks against plates, and the jukebox humming faintly in the background. But David couldn't stop watching Rachel. The way she kept glancing at the girls, her eyes brimming with both love and fear. The way her hands shook slightly, as though life had been too unkind for too long. And then he noticed something else. Her clothes, though neat, were second-hand. Her face was pale, thinner than it should have been. And when she reached into her purse to pull out a worn coin purse, it was empty. David's chest tightened. He knew that look. He had worn it himself after his wife died. The face of someone trying to hold a family together with nothing but grit. Rachel finally whispered, "We'll pay you back one day. I promise." David shook his head slowly. No debt here. Just neighbors helping neighbors. But something told him this was no simple act of kindness. Something told him Rachel's story was bigger, heavier, and more dangerous than he could imagine. The next morning, David couldn't stop thinking about them. The twins with hungry eyes, and their mother with the tired smile. Tyler noticed too. "Dad, those girls, do you think they're okay?" David ruffled his son's hair. "I don't know, buddy. But maybe we can help." Help. The word carried weight. Over the next week, David saw Rachel and her daughters again, once outside the grocery store, another time at the laundromat. Always the same. Rachel keeping her head down, clutching her girls close, as if bracing against a storm no one else could see. Finally, David asked, "Rachel, are you okay?" Or she froze. Then, with a trembling sigh, she whispered the truth. Her husband had abandoned them years ago, leaving debt and scars behind. She worked double shifts at a cleaning company, but rent swallowed most of her paycheck. Some weeks, she skipped meals so the girls could eat. She carried shame like a cloak, hiding from pity and judgment alike. David listened in silence, his heart breaking. When she finished, he said the only thing that mattered, "You're not alone anymore." From then on, things changed. David brought groceries when he could. Rachel, proud yet grateful, insisted on helping him with laundry or babysitting Tyler when he had late carpentry jobs. The kids became fast friends, their laughter filling the hollow spaces in all their lives. But not everyone approved. At the diner one evening, when Rachel joined David and the kids, a man at the counter sneered loud enough for half the room to hear. Figures. Single dad and a charity case. What a pair! Rachel's cheeks burned crimson, but David stood tall. "You don't know her story," he said evenly. The man snorted. "Don't need to. People like her. People like her." David interrupted, his voice steady but sharp. "Are stronger than most men I've ever met. So unless you've walked a mile in her shoes, keep your mouth shut." The diner went silent. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Not of shame this time, but of something else. Something softer. Something healing. That night, as they walked home under streetlights, Rachel whispered, "No one's ever stood up for me like that." David glanced at her, heart pounding. Maybe it's about time someone did. Slowly, piece by piece, they began to build something fragile yet powerful. A bond not born of romance first, but of survival, respect, and quiet courage. Rachel helped David believe in love again, though he hadn't realized his heart was still capable of it. David helped Rachel believe in safety again, though she thought the world had none left for her. And the children, well, they found family where the world had once tried to take it from them. Months later, on a chilly December evening, David brought Rachel and the twins to the diner once more. This time, they didn't sit out of desperation, but as a family. He ordered enough food for everyone, laughter bouncing between bites. At one point, Emily looked up with wide eyes. "Mester, David, do you think we'll ever be okay?" David reached across the table, taking Rachel's hand gently in his. "We already are." Rachel's eyes glistened. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe it. Because sometimes, family isn't about who shares your blood. Sometimes, it's about who shares your burdens. And as the diner jukebox hummed another old Elvis song, David realized something: profound kindness. The simple act of noticing, of saying yes instead of no, of sharing what little you have, can change the course of someone's entire life. It had changed his. It had changed Rachel's. And maybe, just maybe, it would change the world. Final note for viewers: life is heavy. People carry burdens we cannot see. But sometimes, the smallest act of compassion, sharing leftovers, offering a smile, standing up when others stay silent, can ripple into miracles. If this story touched your heart, remember this: you, too, have the power to be someone's miracle. So don't just watch. Live it. Be the kindness you wish to see. And never forget, families are not only born, sometimes they are chosen.